We are celebrating in 2025 our very first Women in Construction with Maria Kauffman. I met her several years ago on her own podcast, and a lot has transitioned over the last year or 2 years for her, and we are reconnecting. I'm so excited to have you, Maria. Welcome back to Offsite Dirt.
Thank you. It is so great to be here. And like you said, it's been a little while and a lot of great things have transpired. And it's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, as I recall, you were an engineer and obviously still doing it. So tell us a little bit more about what you've kind of walked into and what's been going on with you for the last year, because you've went through a lot of transition.
I have. So, where one door closes, another door opens will be the theme here. So, I have never been one to deny the opportunity for a big dream. So I love that about myself. Not everyone seems to celebrate that with me, but I just can't help myself. So even though one dream kind of ended a couple of years ago, it did pave way for another opportunity. So I believe that that's one of my superpowers, if you will, that has helped me in my career and in life. So sometimes when you say yes to those opportunities, that might not seem like those shiny pebbles or that big gem. You can turn those things into complete successes if you want to. So it feels like I've been a part of that this past year, and it has really led to some things that I would never have asked for myself. And now that they have transpired, I could not be happier.
I love your optimism. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about you. And I love that you are so open and receiving. And so tell us about this new position and what you're doing.
So I am a senior automation engineer for Carlisle Construction Materials, and I am helping them with capital projects. So that is my role for the most part. But the interesting aspect of being in the central engineering department is that you're not always working on one thing, and capital expenditure can come in small packages and in very, very large packages. So what that means is that, I'm on campus with one of our plants. So we're basically a consultant to our own company. So I can be a visitor, but some of the projects that I've been involved with this past year has basically adopted me as one of the campus engineers to help them through a difficult time, and get over some hurdles. So at the same time, then I can come back to my normal office and work on some large projects that we have going on and get into everything that we have across the states.
Wow, it sounds like you're busy.
I'm busy. And then on top of that, I'll have to share that I'm also the chair of our Women of Carlisle ERG. So that, came around because of some previous skills that I developed with the podcast and some of the networking that came across with that as well. So that definitely opened up opportunities and allowed me to step into that role. I'll say pretty easily, but it was quite an effort this past year. So to be talking to you today and looking back over the year, it's a huge celebration to get through it. But there were some, pretty heavy lifting times, and yeah, some challenges along the way. But when you're going through those, they do feel very dark and impossible. And once again, I think my natural tenacity just allowed me to get through that. And now that I have, looking back, that's where those real growth opportunities really present themselves and say, wow, I almost didn't know that I had it in me to do that. And there were definitely other times where you really question whether you're the right person to be in a spot to be doing the work. And I say that lightly, and I see you're shaking your head because you understand that, right? Because like once again, sometimes you don't realize that that door that may be closing is opening up these other opportunities for you to be who you are, for you to be in the place that you're meant to be, and for you to be doing the work that you're meant to do.
I agree with you, and I love that you were saying growth, right? Because a lot of things that challenge us, when we had to put our head down and we have to get through it, and we know that we have to keep getting up every morning and knowing that there is a greater good, something more that you're contributing to, a bigger purpose, right? And so it's so fascinating that you use growth because I think when people are challenged or they're seeing or going through that, it doesn't quite feel like growth. It feels scary. It feels hard. It's exhausting. And then it's so wonderful, Maria, that you say that because that's truly where we do grow. When we are having obstacles, when we are having challenges, and we can have it in any part of our life. We can have it in our personal, we can have it in our professional. We can go through all of these different things, and we can be a victim or we can be a creator, and we can create how we're going to get through it. Makes me super proud for you to understand that and to see it, and hopefully it will inspire others to know that there is always a game plan. There is always something bigger and larger that's behind us that is pushing us to be our greatest self, right?
Absolutely. And it is interesting because I'm in a very reflective space right now at the end of the year. And, there were definitely times along the way where I thought, man, it just seems like there could be the grass is greener on the other side. And I know that there's other places out there that would not be this challenging in this way. But really, accepting that and saying yes to this opportunity that I'm in really did come full circle because in some ways I think also had I taken the road less or the easier path, right? Had I really done that and abandoned this opportunity that's here for me right now, I would not have had the personal growth and come out at the other side saying, I did that. I contributed to this success. And I think that's also a message too that I'm finding being the leader of this Women of Carlisle ERG is that I'm watching others too, where there's an intellectual part of learning, right? So we can learn these things. We go to these seminars, we take these classes, we listen to podcasts, and the information sounds so kind of obvious sometimes and kind of simple, like, oh yeah, I know that. But I'm also seeing it in others in that if you don't take that information and put it into action and have the courage sometimes to have those hard conversations and to be the one that moves your project or moves your community in a certain way, then it's really not growth. Because in the end, it's by taking that action and being that person, even if it's a small step that really is the growth. So thank you for reflecting that for me because yeah, I couldn't come out the other end and say that honestly without doing the hard work.
Tell me a little bit more about this organization and why it was created. I think it's super powerful. Just kind of on a side note, I keep in touch with Christy and Angela from Women Talk Construction, and they started an organization called Women in Confidence Builders. And really, what they do is every month they bring together women. It's not like they are sideswiping men, they just are bringing to a collective of women together so that they have this ground to nearly walk on together, to know that these experiences, these conversations, these things that they're going through in the construction industry are okay. Us being forthright and being in our own power, a feminine, a feminine power in what we're doing is okay. And the only reason I bring that up again is because when I started work in TV, it was very masculine oriented. There was only three other women engineers on at any given time, right? There was women broadcasters, but the engineers behind the scenes, there wasn't very many of us. And so it was real hard. It was really difficult because the women didn't know how to communicate. They kind of turned against each other, and the men, some of them were really respectful and some of them weren't. And so I never had anybody to really talk to. So in construction, as you are very aware, and I'm aware, there's usually not that many women on site either. There's usually not that many women in the boardroom. So we just can't find that common ground or that common conversation. And it's so important for us to feel connected. Is that kind of how this organization is run, or tell me more about it? I'm so fascinated.
Yeah, so thanks for asking because that is one of the benefits that comes from a large organization So they commit to allowing an employee resource group. So it's a group that's run by employees. So it does give you the opportunity to say, hey, I see what HR is doing and I see what maybe engineering is doing. I'm the only woman in the engineering department right now. And there's this community that is given some funding and some space to hear these voices and to share those experiences and to say, oh, people might think that, oh, yeah, everything's okay. And we don't have an equality issue anymore. We've solved that. But that's not true. And just being the only woman in the engineering department, but also working for an organization that's large enough to say, oh, we're going to give you this space to be a community. So part of the impact that I can have is say, hey, I want to work with some HR people and solve this problem and basically figure out what are the obstacles and what can we do about that. So that is one of the nice pieces of having this employee resource group is you have that space and you are allowed that freedom, but it still comes with those challenges. And there are still a lot of things that actually are not necessarily advocating for women as much as they could and they should, especially given we're embarking on 2025. Things should not be this way. I'd love to get more women into construction, but it does take these communities, and I'll say solid communities that are willing to stand up and say, listen, I have a story that I just want to tell you. And we're given that space. So this past year, we went to an organization summit out in Boston. It was a big event. And what we did was we invited some of our senior leaders that are all men to come in the room with us and have this conversation after this event, all for women, catch us on that high. Because sometimes that's what it takes to have the courage to even let somebody else know what you're going through. It can be a very dark and a little bit challenging of a conversation to navigate. So our company actually gave us that space to have that conversation and allow these men in. And really what it did, it became powerful. We were all so inspired and the leadership team wanted to hear from us. So first of all, they didn't realize some of the challenges that we were going through. So that was a big win to share that conversation. Two, they got on the heels of this energy that was called feminine inspiration, right? They got to feel it. That was really moving. So after that too is what the employee resource group is meant to do is to create innovation. So we allowed that to happen by having this event. And now that all the good things that came out of that event are still going on. It's like the butterfly effect. So these leaders are still inspired because we connect with them. We still want to hear the goods and the bads that came about that event. But they also are taking all that inspiration back to their workforce and they're making changes too. It takes a while and it definitely, has some positives and negatives about it. But the nice thing is the commitment is to say, we're in it for the long haul. We're going to ride this. Next year's going to be even bigger. Now that we understand how this works, we're just going to make it a better event year after year. So I think that's part of the commitment piece to growth, if you will, is that everybody needs to contribute. Everybody needs a safe space to allow that to happen. And when you do it in community, it does seem to have more an effect. As an individual, I would not have been able to create that kind of change and to have that impact. But together, we absolutely can solve this.
You are just making my day today. That's all I can tell you. I love that organization is willing to have openness and awareness. Awareness is key. I'm reading this book right now. It's called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. We have to start changing the way that we interact. We have to start leading differently. We have to lead from a place of our heart and a collective consciousness that allows us to work together in harmony. Because when we create that energy, everything shifts, not only around us, but also for the influence of the community. And I'll tell you how I know this. When I started Offsite Dirt 5 years ago, well, actually, it's coming up on 6. I started doing these interviews by myself, Maria, very much like yourself. And then I started realizing there's all these amazing voices and experts in the industry. So right now we have 12 different contributors. Each one of those contributors over the last couple of years have brought so much knowledge and wisdom and insight, and then also the collaboration, right? To learn from themselves and to also exchange ideas. But every single one of their companies are flourishing. Why? Because of the energy, the awareness, the ability to grow. And I can only imagine what your company is going to do because they've taken the steps to do that. It's so amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Because that is what the theorists, talk about is it's kind of like a theory, but there are places that are putting that into reality, and being innovative, so it's nice to be recognized. It's nice to have this conversation with you because then together we make even greater impact, right?
Well, you are definitely the rock star that I know. When I met you several years ago, I could already notice that about you. And I am so thrilled that, yes, challenges have arrived, but you're arriving. And you're arriving in such a beautiful space, Maria. And honestly, girl, it makes me so proud and so happy because not only are you doing your job, you're also making an impact on so many people a part of that job. And that is where the success comes.
Yeah, and what a great legacy to leave, right? Because at the end
100%.
of my life, I want to know that I have left this place better than I found it.
I know you already have done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love
Thanks.
that. Well, I'm super excited about 2025. I know you are as well. Any big goals that you have for this year coming up in 2025? Anything that's on your agenda?
Yes. So this year, I am absolutely going to allow myself to naturally get up into leadership positions. And instead of being a little bit more, hectic in my workflow, I'm going to allow that innovation to work for me. So it's going to be more impactful, but I don't need to spend as much energy into it because it's already in flow.
Amen to that. I am wanting that same thing. I'm going to definitely try. I keep figuring out how can I work more efficiently and effectively. And so I think that those are the tools that allows us to be of our greatest nature and to fulfill our purpose at a higher value. So you go get it, Maria. I know you are. I'm so glad you were here today.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing, but you're going to do it as well, right?
We're going to do it together.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Well,
Great.
it's so wonderful having you. Thank you again for being with us on Offsite Dirt. I know the last time we spoke, so much transition, so much beautiful opportunity awakening and coming to you, and you are so well deserving of it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation with you and
And
for
that,
all that you do as well.
thank you. And that's the dirt on Offsite Dirt, another fabulous woman in construction. We're certainly happy to have this conversation with Maria Kauffman today. Thank you.